Hey everybody, Chad with Nobody Else's Auto here at the Auburn Cord Duesenberg Company, Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. Just absolutely stunning stuff. Doug, you got something else amazing to share with us.
Well, we are a restoration business, and we do specialize in Auburn Cords and Duesenbergs. And this is a cord, 1936 cord, that belongs to a gentleman in the club. It's been in the club over 50 years. The club started back in the 50s, and he's never had his car finished. So this year, we're finishing his car. Harry Brathwaite's his name, really nice gentleman. And he's going to be at Auburn with this car. And this car, I can't say I guarantee it, but we're going to get him a first place trophy with a car that he's owned 50 years, 1936 Cord Phaeton, model 810. And so we're trying to finish this up. And Auburn is Labor Day weekend, so we have a couple months to finish this car. And so we're finishing the engine and making sure we have an engine stand just for cords so we can test their transmission, because they're front wheel drive cars. So we'll have everything pre-tested before we drop it in the car. And once we drop it in the car, this car will be ready to drive. So this car will be done within the next 2 months. Interior still has to go in it. We still have to do a lot of detail work under the engine compartment, finish up the engine. But this will be at Auburn, Indiana, to be seen for the first time with a fresh restoration. And we're excited to give him a first place car. So this is what we do, Auburn Cords and Duesenbergs. We are the #1 experts in the world on Auburn and cords.
We've been doing it for a long time.
And what is fun about being at the factory on restoring these cars is like our technicians. I have some of the finest technicians in the world that work for us. If they need a part for a cord or an Auburn, they'll just say, Doug, Adam, hey, I need this special whatever it is. And
even if it's a nut or a clip or something weird.
Anything oddball, because these cars are judged on originality. Well, I can walk right back in the old parts department and start looking, and I pull out a brand new old stock part for this car. Another company who's restoring this car, and they need that part, they've got to call us. Do you have it? Hopefully we have it. They've got to wait for us to ship it to them so they can make their car original, as where my guys just walk back in the back and find the part. And for a cord, this was the most complex cord built in the world in 1936 and 37. They did these only 2 years, 36, 37. They built close to 3,000 cords in all the different body styles. The open cars, the convertibles, were not near as many as the sedans. But they built a supercharged version of this in 37, and that would be a model 812. This is a 36, so they didn't have superchargers in 36. But the most complex car built in the world, this car sold for almost $3,000 new.
In 36.
In 36.
And what was a Ford, like $500?
And yeah, $450 to $650 would buy you a new Ford. So these were for the elite, and it's the heart of the Depression. That's why they went out of business. It's in the heart of the Depression, and even like Auburn Cord and Duesenbergs were all high-end cars, and especially Duesenbergs.
Yeah.
And it's just the Depression killed them. But this is probably one of the top 10 most beautiful design cars in the world. Look at the Art Deco styling. This was one of the very first cars, if not the first car, that was unibody construction. Notice there's no running boards. Everything had running boards back then. So the car's low because it's front wheel drive, so the cars don't set up high. You don't have to step up on a running board. The car's set nice and low. They were the first car to ever have hideaway headlights. So the headlights just hid away into the fenders instead of the big old 12-inch headlights that a lot of cars had. They actually would hide away, and there's a little crank on each side in the interior that cranks them open so you can at night. So lots of firsts on these cars. One of the earliest V8s. This has a 289 cubic inch V8, flathead V8. This is one of the very first front wheel drive cars in America. In fact, there were no front wheel drive cars after World War II made in America until this factory introduced the new version of this in 1966. So Glenn Prey created the first front wheel drive car in America post World War II, and then Tornado took his design and they became the first mass produced front wheel drive car in America. Now almost everything is front wheel drive. But these cars have lots of first, the design, the beauty, and what we have looked at, people say, well, we're restoring one of these cars. How long does it take? A Cord is so complex, especially with this front wheel drive, that it takes about, for us, as the people who know what we're doing, 3,500 hours. Now, I've had people say they put more in, people have put less, but we can usually do a car to a concourse type quality for about 3,500 hours.
And what a lot of people don't understand, and we're going to show them, we're going to have a totally separate video to show them this, but this is basically a normal configuration, a V8 engine with a regular transmission bolted to the end of the engine,
right,
only it sits backwards.
Yeah, just
the transmission literally comes clear up to here.
Yeah, and that's what this is. Transmission sticks out front. Well, it's a 4-speed transmission. Almost all cars were 3-speed back then, but a manual 4-speed transmission. Automatics had never been designed yet. So how do you get a standard 4-speed to shift that's way out here in front? You can't put a shift lever on it.
Yep.
So Cord designed a mechanism, and I call it a robotic shifting. They call it a pre-select shifter. So between the electronics and vacuum, they can actually, the robotics will shift a 4-speed transmission. So you can use, and I think it's already in this car, and I think you've done a video.
Yeah,
before,
we've got that video. I'll try to put a link
but
in here. We
this-
actually show it working.
This one little lever with your finger shifts the car, and so it's just that easy. So what you do is you put it in the gear you want it, push in the clutch and wait, and then the robot will shift the 4-speed transmission. So look at the videos that show how that transmission works. But look at this dash. As far as I'm concerned, I've seen lots of magnificent cars, multi-million-dollar cars. I think this is the most beautiful dash that's ever been created in an automobile. It was all during the era to look aircraft. That's what it is, an aircraft-looking dash with all the different gauges that light up. I mean, this car is absolutely magnificent inside and out. And they were fast. They were all guaranteed to do over 100 miles an hour when the standard speed limit was 35 to 40 miles an hour nationwide. So if you were in 1936 and this drives by and you're used to seeing Model Ts and Model As on the road, you can imagine. We've determined that in one of these cars, there's over 15,000 parts. So when we restore one of these, you can see why it takes 3,500 hours. We handle every part, every nut, bolt, and screw. Sometimes you can spend an entire day reworking one instrument in this car. So the complexity of it, and then to get the kind of quality that we get, is just very, very time consuming. But that's who we are. I mean, we are Auburn Cord Duesenberg, and we know these cars better than probably anybody in the world. And in fact, we get lots of phone calls every day from other restoration companies. What's correct? What's original? What's this? Because in the judging standards at Auburn, it's a 1,000-point judging system, and I think 500 of the points are for quality, for chrome, for interior, and 500 points are on originality. So if it had a straight slot screw there, you better put a straight slot screw, because if you put a Phillips head screw, they ding you on points. You can't do that. Phillips head screws were never on an Auburn or a Cord. We go all the way down to the original key in a Cord, says Auburn on it. It doesn't say Cord on it, says Auburn on it, but Auburn owned Cord. And what is funny is they did make keys that say Cord, but they didn't go on the Cord. They went on the early Cords in 1929, 1930, 1931. 36, 37 Cords had an Auburn key. So to be original, we have original Auburn keys. Who else in the world can walk back in the parts bin and come up with an original Auburn key? So every piece of chrome that was chromed or not chromed, and even like this, when the restoration was started, they chromed the doorknob on it, which really looks good and makes perfect sense. But for judging, they'll ding us because it's chrome. So we're going to have to take that beautiful chrome off and put paint on it, because that's what's correct and that's what's original.
Is this car like a burgundy, maroon? Is that what?
Yeah, this is an original color. They had probably over half a dozen colors. And with the Auburn Cord Duesenberg judging standards, you can literally paint your Cord or Auburn any color that was available during that time period. So you're not going to put some I've never seen a metallic cord, so no metallic paint. Not that metallic was not out then, but the way it was done then, they never painted a two-tone cord. They never put a pinstripe on a cord. And you can see the car is designed for it with its lines. It doesn't need pinstriping, and why two-tone this beautiful design. But this is one of the original colors, and it's called rich maroon. And you can see it is rich.
It's
people,
deep, yeah.
You know, if the lights are out in here, you'd think it's black. You get out in the sunshine, then it's this beautiful maroon. So I don't know how well that will show up on the video, but this is a very, very deep maroon, rich maroon, original cord color. And so all the interior you can see is going to be the same color as the dash. The judging standards say the interior and the dash have to match in color. And then the steering wheel and the shifting mechanism is supposed to be the color of the body. So we do that exactly the way they did it at the factory. Everything down to the correct rubber pedals on the floor, the correct pattern on the stitching on the floor. The gentleman that was doing the interior on this has since passed away, but he gets so picky about doing the interiors, he'd count the number of stitches per inch on an original upholstery and a cord, and that's what he would match on his new interiors. I mean, sometimes it seems to get really silly, but to be, excuse me, to be that correct, you know,
That's what you got to do.
that's what we do. And so it's just more time and energy, but this will be a very sought after, highly desirable, judged at very high points. This will be a first place car. So we'll see how far it goes. They do have an award there that they give out that is the Gordon Burig Award. The Gordon Burig was the original designer of this car, probably one of the most famous car designers in the world, and was actually a good friend of my father's, and I knew him well too. But he designed this car back in the 30s, and they have a trophy called the Gordon Burig Trophy, and it says on the trophy, if you win that one, finest cord in the world. Now, I'm not going to say we're going to get that trophy, but we're going to.
It'd be pretty cool if
but
it did.
we're going to get first place, whether we get the title of finest cord in the world. That, you know, that's kind of hard to do. But this one will be done in 2 months. It will be debuted and judged and shown and driven in the parade in Auburn, Indiana, Labor Day weekend. If any of your people have never been to a fabulous car show, Auburn, Indiana, I go to car shows all over the world. It's my favorite car show that there is. There could be as many as 500 Auburns and Cords and Duesenbergs show up there. They have a great parade. They call it the Parade of Classics. All the cars take over the downtown area of the beautiful town of Auburn, Indiana. The factory is the nicest car museum in the world, is right there in Auburn, Indiana. So if you want a Labor Day weekend, fun car show, come Labor Day weekend of any year, and spend 3 or 4 days having an absolute ball looking at Auburns and Cords and Duesenbergs and touching them and driving them, and it's a lot of fun. We'll even have strangers come up and say, hey, do you have room in your car? Can we ride in the parade with you? So we'll even give people rides. So,
well, it's amazing. I can't wait to see it come together and see it at Auburn in a few months.
yeah, it's going to be there, and and I'm anxious to see what it does, but it will certainly be a showstopper.
Well, sounds great. We're excited to see it come together. It's an amazing car. It's beautiful. I can't wait to see the chrome back against this burgundy and see this thing done. So let's go check out some more cool stuff.
Okay, thanks. We will.